Hi, everyone, and welcome to the UEFA Dynasty League podcast. I'm your host, Eric of VFL Wolfsburg, and we have the same crew rounding out our Bundesliga power rankings for the 2020 season. We'll start with Fred of Hercules. Fred, how are you doing tonight?
I'm fantastic. It is the best time of the year. Oktoberfests have hit the shelves, and I got to play disc golf today. So yay!
Hell yeah. Very nice. Very interesting. A few topics there. I like Brooklyn Summer Ale. I have a friend that bought like 60 of them just because he knew they'd be coming off the shelf. So, yeah, nothing wrong with a good Marzen, that's for sure. Moving on to our second co-host, Mike of Udinese. Hey, Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm back in Connecticut and counting down until Oktoberfest. Actually, just had a nice conversation with a couple bartenders about Oktoberfest and favorite beers up here. So, it truly is the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah. So not only are we a podcast of a specific Dynasty League, but we also like beer. So certainly good talking points if we ever get to the beer. But last but not least on our podcast, we have DK of God, DK, what's your team? Atalanta? Jeez, just froze for a second.
That's right. Cheers, fellas. I actually opted for a bourbon tonight. I'm most of the time drinking beer, but occasionally we'll throw a bourbon in. This is a Knob Creek single barrel, keeping the chest nice and warm tonight.
Very nice. Well, without further ado, we'll hop right into the power rankings, and we'll do it just like we did Serie A last week. We go from last to first, and so we kind of had three in the bottom tier here, but the 12th team, we do have Mainz, and what I wanted to do that I didn't do last week was kind of give you the recap from the previous season. Mainz finished ninth in the Bundesliga, which was considered one of the weaker divisions. He did not get a win out of his domestic cup. He did not qualify for Champions League. So an underwhelming performance for Mainz, and it doesn't look like it's we think it's going to get any better this time around. If we take a quick look at his team, his quarterbacks are Baker Mayfield, who struggled last season, and Mitch Trubisky, who couldn't hit a ball with the truck. Followed up by underperforming running backs, Kerryon Johnson, and, Jordan Howard, who has some value, but he's not going to be able to carry his team. His receivers are certainly his biggest upside position. DK Metcalf, Allen Robinson, Stephon Diggs is a good crew. I also wrote down Sanu as a point because he is my favorite NFL player. And rounding up the tight ends, which looked awesome at the start of last year. And now, Ingram's got to get on the field, and O.J. Howard kind of took a huge step back. So, Fred, why don't you get us started on Mainz? What do you think about this team?
So looking at my notes here, I said he's got great starters at wide receiver. He's got one quarterback, maybe one running back, and a good enough solid TE. He's got his tight end should be. He may end up starting both of them if things go well. But Evan Ingram is a guy who should be top 5 at the position. Unfortunately, that's pretty much the best thing I have to say about his entire team. He's got Diggs and Metcalf, which I love. Allen Robinson is a great third receiver or first receiver, if you want to consider him that. But that's really all there is. So he's got receivers and a couple tight ends, and nothing else he can count on for anything else all season long.
Right. Yeah, that's certainly a good point. I think out of all the teams we ranked, he certainly was the most consistently at the bottom. Although, Mike, you had him at 12. So you think he's the worst team in the Bundesliga. And why do you think that is? What does he not have that other teams do have near the bottom here?
A running back and a second quarterback? I mean, who's comfortable walking into the season with Jordan Howard as your running back one? I mean, again, I agree with Fred. The receivers are looking pretty stealthy. I've got them as one of my top 4 core in the Bundesliga, but really everything else is a massive question mark. So if you're relying on, one of the few quarterbacks in a quarterback battle this offseason, Trubisky, a quarterback who just had their team hardcore commit to the run in the offseason, no real RB1 or really RB2, and your upside is those receivers and Ingram, it's going to be a long year.
What if we were to say some best case scenarios here? Trubisky is the starter all year and isn't either Foles gets hurt or just isn't great enough to unseat him, and Jordan Howard plays as the main running back in Miami, and DeAndre Swift gets hurt in Detroit, so Kerryon Johnson gets the full season at that job. Is this team? I mean, that gives him a full starting lineup at least.
I mean, look, you're right. Fantasy football is a weird game, and crazy shit happens. I think it's Matt Berry who said it on, I kind of pick and choose mantras from different analysts, and this is one of the ones that take from him is, don't think about what might happen. Think about what's most likely to happen based off of what we know. What's most likely to happen in New York, for example, for the Giants? You've got a bunch of middling receivers. You got Saquon Barkley. You got Evan Ingram. But again, you got a coach who doesn't know how to use Evan Ingram. So what's most likely to happen there? I mean, as we mentioned, he's got two wide receiver ones on their teams in Diggs and A-Rob. Metcalf is emerging, and Beasley is a underrated flex play. But really, you've got timeshares at both running back positions, and even if Trubisky wins the job, that's a team that likes to be predicated on defense. So how much are they going to trust him to throw the ball to put up points? So really, it's relying on his rushing ability for a solid floor, and a feeling that he's going to get yanked at any time. And even Baker, who was one of the more noted slam dunk quarterback prospects last year, seems to be on thin ice in Cleveland. If things go badly, there's a real chance they'll be in top 5 contention, and it would be tough for them to pass over, Lawrence or Fields or those guys. So it's one of those things where I don't want to pontificate more than I already have, but like for probably base case scenarios for each of these players, this is the worst team.
And Mike, I think you highlighted a big fact. Like, even if Trubisky plays, like, is he going to be that good? But with 2 QBs and those receivers, that's what puts me. I ranked them 10th, and I think that's what would make this team a possible Champions League contender if Trubisky somehow became a Pro Bowler this year. I don't see that as a realistic thing, but he doesn't really need to be a Pro Bowler with the legs for fantasy to make it work. Now, Donnie, what do you think? You were someone like me that ranked him 10th as well, right?
Yeah, I think what put him at 10th was for some of these bottom teams, I didn't go, like quite as sunshine and roses outlook, but I tried to look at where stuff is clearly on the fence. What if it broke their way? What if Trubisky became the starter? What if the slow start for the rookies and the lack of training camps, and now training camps, that the short training camps that we do have being canceled, does that hold back some of the rookies, and Kerryon Johnson hangs on to that job a little longer into the season or for the whole season with more work than the rookie? How does that break? And then he's got some veteran pass catchers on the team that could get a boost if the rookie receivers on those teams also don't do a whole lot, or the emerging receivers on those teams don't do a whole lot. That's where I landed at 10th overall instead of last with this team.
Yeah. So it's certainly something that I think we all think that this team is going to underperform, but looking at this team going into last season, I certainly think they super underperformed based on some of those guys like Ingram, Howard, Kerryon, Baker. Even Baker had a rough season. We all thought he was going to be a top 5 QB, but we'll move on to our second to last place team here. And I forgot to mention the people who did the rankings. Amongst us 4, we also had Matt, our co-commissioner of Tottenham, and Billy unfortunately couldn't finish his rankings, but we had Justin of Hanover hand in his rankings. So Justin, we thank you for doing that for us, and certainly some valuable input that we can have here as well. But moving on to the 11th place team, we have Hamburg, with an average of 10 amongst the rankers. Matt, Donnie, and Justin all had him ranked last. However, Fred had him ranked 5th, and Mike had him ranked 8th. So we'll let you guys talk about those with the strong opinions. If we look at his last year finish, he finished in dead last in the Bundesliga. He did not win a game in the domestic cup. He did not qualify for Champions League. So unfortunately for Evan, not a strong start to his UEFA career. But moving on to his team here, pull that up. He has Garoppolo and Joe Burrow as one of his number one picks from to round out those super flex spots. He's got Singletary as his main running back, who could carve out a bigger role now that Fred Gore is gone. And at receiver, he's got Chris Godwin anchoring that crew with Ruggs and Higgins, rookies looking to break out this year. He's also got Evan Ingram, and I believe that's Jonnu Smith at tight end. So
Smith Jr.
That's Irv Smith. Sorry, I really got to start writing the first names on that list. But looking at this team, Fred, you got to tell me why this is the 5th place team, because I don't see it.
Yeah, I'm beginning to question my own sanity here on this one. I think I had looked at this team late in the day yesterday after I had looked at a whole bunch of the rest of the league, and something sparked in my eye because I had him at one point ranked as high as 3rd in the division, and yeah, that's absolutely not happening with what I'm seeing. With maybe a fresh night's sleep and another beer in my belly. He's got some pieces. He's got some guys. I think his superflex quarterbacks are going to be the strength of this team, and players that are going to be giving him consistent, let's just say, back end QB1 production all year long. Each of them. I think they're both in that tier. I like Godwin. I liked Kerryon Johnson, I think, a lot better yesterday. For some reason, because I liked him as a running back on 2 different teams in this division. I have been hearing in the past day or so about how much more Moss is doing in Buffalo over Singletary, and that probably pushes me much further down than I thought that he was going to be this season. So this is a team that should be moving down in my rankings if I were to do another one.
And now, you say you'd move them down, Fred. Would you still move them down to the lights where we and the other rankers have him? Outside of Mike, I personally ranked him 11th. Matt ranked him 12th. Donnie and Justin both ranked him 12th as well.
Looking at the teams that are right down there at the bottom, he's better than Maines, in my opinion, based on his quarterbacks. He's better than. Well, we'll move to the other teams, and yeah, I think he's probably still 8th or 9th.
Well, before I let the other analysts come in, we do have a surprise guest live from a Front Bottoms concert at Monmouth Racetrack. It's Billy of Arsenal. Billy, how are you on here?
I am really excited to be here. Concert ended at 8:45. All I was thinking was, I gotta get home. I have a podcast, and I'm sorry I'm late, guys. I know you've been talking about it already, and I didn't send in my thing, my rankings.
Didn't do the homework.
No, I have it. I have it right here.
Oh, so you get to reveal them live on the air?
Yeah.
Don't worry, Billy. You don't need to do the homework. The group project will still be an A.
I know one person in here will think it's an A. I know that.
Okay, so Mike, why don't you continue with the conversation of Hamburg, because you also fancy him a little more than the other rankers. And is there any particular piece or the pieces he doesn't have that makes that work for you for 8th?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a more complete team than I think people are giving him credit for. There's a lot of, again, upside needed, but where he's asking for upside is not a unrealistic thing. I think, that running back position is enough to give him maybe one running back start a week, but then he's got enough depth at tight end, receiver, and quarterback to kind of make sure he rounds out his 8. Like he throws both quarterbacks, Godwin, his 2 first round, well, not both first round, but 15 and 33 from this year's draft. Campbell, who I think was top 40 pick last year, and then all 3 of those are looking like potential breakout tight ends. This is the classic Evan team that's wildly frustrating. It's got enough strong pieces that you think, okay, maybe this team has a chance if he makes a move, but it's Evan, so he's not going to make a move. So, again, kind of move away. This team's 2 moves away, things like that. Evan's probably 2 moves away, but he's not going to make those moves, so he's going to be stuck in the middle of the pack. So that's why I kind of felt comfortable putting him at 8, because between his three very good pieces, and what I'd call probably 5 or 6 middle of the pack pieces, that's going to be a high floor for him on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and I see your point, because it's one of those teams where I'm like, he's only got 3 pieces that are going to be good. The other ones I'm really just not sure about. I don't think they'll pan out, but a couple of those pan out, and boom, you're right in the middle of the league, because it doesn't take that much to be in top. So you have a great point there, Mike. You kind of sway me a little bit. Let's be honest.
Let's just say he's a much better best ball roster than one where he has to pick the starters every week.
Perfectly agree.
Donnie, do you have any thoughts on this Hamburg team? I know you don't fancy it.
No, I think it's the worst team in this league for this year. I think they're going to be starting 3 tight ends a lot of the weeks, and none of those tight ends are named Kittle, Ertz, or Kelsey, and that's a problem if you're starting 3 tight ends. I think Garoppolo is solid, but he's not going to, with how much they hand off the ball and the fact that his receivers are dropping like flies is going to be an issue for his upside this year. And Joe Burrow is an early rookie who is entering what's probably going to be the hardest season to enter for a rookie quarterback. So I've got a lot of question marks as to, how well he's really going to perform. Don't like any of the running backs. I think they're all in situations where they're, either not going to get playing time or they're going to get beat out. Like Fred said, Kerryon Johnson is meh. And Singletary, all the buzz out of campus, he can't stop fumbling the ball, and Moss is getting all the first team work. I see 2 wide receivers that I feel really good about starting, and then a ton of question marks. So I think this is the worst team.
Yeah, and I think that's why I had him ranked near the bottom. Bill, we'll let you have closing thoughts. I know you didn't have the teams ranked, but where do you land on Hamburg?
It's funny. I was shaking my head at what DK just said. If you're starting 3 tight ends, I mean, come on. Again, unless you're Kittle, Kelsey, and something crazy. His team is it's just insane that he's getting money to this league. That's how bad I think it is.
It's a dynasty league.
I understand. You know what? I'm happy you said that, because look at last year and look how bad your team was last year. And spoiler alert, and you know what? I really hate doing this. You are my number one.
Don't spoil it.
No, I have to. It makes sense. I'm not sure I'm going to make it to the end. You're my number one. And
Oh my God.
I hate the fact that you were number one. I hate it. I looked at a couple other teams, and I tried to argue that maybe there's other teams that could be there. And I kept looking back at your team, and I love your team. I love your team. I love it.
All right. Well, Bill, here, I'm going to cut you off because we're going to get to my team, and I'm sorry if you're not there for it. But we better move on. We have
about Hamburg. I was agreeing with everything DK said. You're starting tight ends like that 3 times in the league like this, and there's just no way that he's going to be successful at all. It's bad. It's not like, but again, I don't want to ruin anything. Like you said, it was a surprise.
Exactly. So let's move on, because it's not a surprise if you're watching the stream. We do have the rankings up, but we want to give each team at least 5 minutes to talk about, and we do have a lot of deviation compared to previous rankings. So moving on to our 10th place team, average ranking of 9.67 among the rankers is Bayer Leverkusen, who Mike actually has ranked 5th, and everybody else has in the bottom tier. We're going to have to go to Mike to see what he sees that we don't. But if we're looking at Leverkusen last season, he finished in 7th, which is mid-table, right? One below the average. He did lose in the first round of the domestic cup, and he did make the qualifying round of Champions League, but he did lose there. He will be in the Europa League if we do ever finalize that, Matt and I. Put it on the list. But Mike, let me just round off this team real quick, and we'll let you go ahead and give us your starting opinion on why you like this team so much. And there it is: Kyler Murray and Trubisky at quarterback. At running back, he's got Miles Sanders and Ronald Jones. He's also got Henderson out in L.A. His receivers are Christian Kirk, AJ Green, and he's got a good tight end combo at Kelsey and Gesicki. So, Mike, why is this a borderline Champions League team for you this year in the Bundesliga?
Well, look, I'm really high on at least one piece at each of his positions. I think Kyler Murray, speaks for itself. I think Miles Sanders speaks for itself. AJ Green, I think, his death is much overblown, and Travis Kelsey. And then there's kind of a number 2 at the position who's intriguing. Trubisky, I think, talked about, he's not really reliable as a second quarterback, but he could end up being one. I think Jones is in the catbird seat for that starting job in Tampa Bay. And then Christian Kirk, again, I think having Hopkins might actually help him this year. And then last but not least, Gesicki and the metric model he is. I think you get to 7 or 8 starters on this team pretty easily. And then between Henderson, Arcega-Whiteside, and Warren, I think that's, again, very intriguing pieces. Henderson just got completely unblocked and is being called on to be the home run hitter in the Rams. Arcega-Whiteside, everyone knew it was going to take at least 2 years before he broke out. And then everyone got upset because he had a bad rookie campaign. Everyone knew he was going to have a bad rookie campaign. So I'm willing to take a shot on him here. And then apparently Watson's been having really good chemistry and doing a lot of offseason work with Warren, who is kind of a good tight end sleeper. So it's one of those teams that I think the booms are there on a regular basis, and he's got enough high-end pieces to kind of keep him in the running from a week-to-week basis. I think a lot of draws are on the team's future that people are kind of chalking up as losses.
Okay, and I'll be the first to disagree with you, since I did have the lowest as my bottom team, and I think why I have him ranked as the bottom team, and it's a little bit different than you, is I don't see these flexes being consistent week-to-week plays, where you're looking at AJ Green, who's got to bounce back from an injury, which is possible, right? So I can give him one flex receiver, but after that, you're looking at running backs with Rojo and Henderson that I don't personally love. You're looking at a second quarterback in Trubisky, who I don't have slotted as a starter this season. I don't believe in that talent. So he could bounce his way, but that's why I have him ranked last. But Donnie, you don't have him ranked well either. And what do you see that is gonna hurt him this year?
Well, as I look at it, I think based on the benefit of the doubt that I gave Maine, I probably need to put this team above Maine, assuming that Trubisky hangs on to or earns that starting job. If Trubisky earns a starting job and nobody gets hurt of these 8 starters, this is an okay team. But it's a team that also can't allow a single injury, and that's including a perpetually injured AJ Green. If that happens, the team is done.
Yeah, it's. I hope he does have a good season, because I love AJ Green. He's been dominant when healthy, and I think he's playing for a big contract. So I'm rooting for him.
But he's already out of practice. Like, I think today was his first day in practice in over a week.
Oh, jeez. And they do have a more crowded receiver corp there, too. Bill, I see you shaking your head a little bit. What are you thinking over there?
I was just thinking, Eric. I'm really happy. I missed being a part of these.
We're happy, but
I don't want to spoil and going into it, which I already have. I'm looking at this team, and I'm looking at it, and I can't in any way, shape, or form figure out how you have that 5. I mean, I have them 11 in my list, and I think I'm being nice. The way you were talking about Sanders, I kind of blacked out after you were talking about Sanders being a first RB. I'm just really not sure.
Billy is a Giants fan.
No, it's not even that. It's not even that because for after the Super Bowl with Clement, after they beat the Patriots, I fell in love with him, and he screwed me. So it's not even about that. This team reminds me of I love Kirk. I do. I'm a big Kirk guy. Queen's 32. Again, coming off a entire year off. Which reminds me of with Troop, he might play one game. Let's get real. He'll play a game. It reminds me of my team in a way. But if my team was, I don't know how to say this.
I don't think you can describe a team without going into other teams that we're not talking about.
It reminds me of my team in the way where it's very, very, very bad. I don't have too much depth. They don't either. But if you compare my team, my starters to this, again, try not to be rude. Disaster is the nicest way I can say this. I mean, you'll get Rojo, you'll get Henderson to me. I mean, come on. I'm not sure how you can look at this kind of team and say, you know what? You have a chance at the Champions League. No, their starting team is subpar at best, and you with their bench, which is really not good at all.
Well,
This
so
I'm sorry. What?
you're in the majority there.
I know that, but again, I was just texting you because I said I didn't want to spoil anything. And I see Mike in the chat, Billy saying he liked that. That was, you know what? I can't say it's mean because it's right.
Okay, so we'll let Fred get the closing thoughts, and we invite you directly. Fred, what do you have to say on other people?
Well, I'm of a mind with Mike and also of the rest of you because I have them ranked fairly low myself. But I think we are underestimating or under ranking the power of 3 studs. And he's got Kyler Murray, Miles Sanders, and Travis Kelce. All 3 of those guys are looking like top half, at their position, top 6, top 5 at their position if things go right. And then you've got, like the players that we're hearing about in terms of redraft as guys you should target late all over the place on this roster. Darrell Henderson, Ronald Jones is even being touted as a starter, or, he could be an RB1 himself. Arcega Whiteside, Jalen Hurd before he got hurt, Damian Williams before he got hurt, Christian Kirk, MVS. These guys are getting press right now because they could be a breakout in some way. And if he gets a couple of these guys to land, then I would say, I'm not going to say look out because he's still missing a full complement of competable starters. But with the studs that he has and a couple of guys that come out of nowhere, he's going to beat some teams that he shouldn't.
I think it's a fair point, Fred. But we'll move on here. And John of one of the Bundesliga teams, Leipzig, has said, Billy with the astute analysis, comments on YouTube. So there you go, Billy. You got another fan. But we'll move on to our 9th place team here. And it's really a tier break. We have the bottom 3 there among rankers on average that are right near the bottom. And next would be our 9th place team, Dortmund. And Dortmund was a more successful team if we look at last year. They finished 6th in the league. They made the quarterfinals in the Domestic Cup, and they made the group stage in the Champions League. So one of the more successful teams finding their way to the bottom of our power rankings. Looking at Brian's roster here, he has Russell Wilson and Ryan Tannehill at QB, so some good starters there. Looking at running backs, he has Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Marlon Mack, and Philip Lindsay. Round out that crew. And at receiver, he's got Devontae Parker, Tyler Lockett, N'Keal Harry, and Sammy Watkins. And looking at his tight ends, he has Graham, Brate, and Sternberger. He has a bunch of players, so definitely more depth than a lot of the teams that we've covered so far. I'm looking at how we ranked him. Donnie, among the people here in the pod, you have him the highest at rank 6. So why don't you go ahead and let us know what you like about his team?
Yeah, two quality starters, getting big dollars, and have no threat of losing their starting job at running back, which I really like. I think Marlon Mack, especially with how this year is playing out, will get a decent amount of touches. Especially if the team opts to keep some tread off the tires of their new running back while Mack is on the last year of his deal, and they've got just a fantastic offensive line. So, with Mack and Sanders, I think they've got a really strong couple running backs. And Howard, if he straight out wins the job there, he could be nice as well. Big fan of Parker. I think he had a great year last year that he'll build off of. N'Keal Harry could, there's not a lot of competition there for him to stand out, and decent draft pick to start jumping up and block it as well. I think the part of this team I really like the least is, he might get some zeros at tight end, and that's where it's really going to hold this team back.
Yeah, and zeros might hurt, especially when you don't have the studs other than Russell Wilson and maybe Sanders to cover it. But Mike, you were the lowest among our rankers at 11 for Dortmund, so we'll let you have the dissenting opinion here, Michael. Why don't you like this team compared to some of the other teams we discussed?
Outside of Wilson, I don't see any breakout players or players that are really, Wilson and Sanders. I don't really see those studs. I agree. I think there's a zero at tight end. And with Metcalf emerging in Seattle, I don't know if Lockett's going to keep getting the points he's had in past years. So you've got really no tent pole at receiver, no tent pole at tight end, and basically Wilson and Sanders, Tannehill, who had a great season here, but we're really willing to say Ryan Tannehill was a fantasy quarterback. So again, I just don't trust anyone on this roster outside of Wilson and Sanders. Again, I think he's got a good zero RB set, and he's got some good depth at receiver, but I don't see the guys who are going to carry this team. Like what you need, probably 80, 90. I was never in contention in any games last year, so I don't know what a winning score is at this point. But I'd imagine you need probably 90, 100 points. Who on this team is going to get him to 80? You got Wilson, Sanders, and Tannehill, so say they get you to 50 or 60. You really think there's 3 other guys in this team who are going to put 20 points up?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Mike, and especially one thing that I don't probably pay enough to is you need to win by 12 points to get those 3 points. Where, a win's better than 2 draws. And, looking at this team, I do think that the floor is higher than some of the teams, but the ceiling is definitely lower when you're just like you're saying, it's really a couple studs, and then the fall off is just mostly depth guys, which is funny because I don't think that's how Brian usually builds his team. I think this is a different team for him. But Fred, you played with Brian in plenty of leagues. What do you think on his team?
I think it's bad, and I think that I was a little more confident in the studs that the previous team had over what this one has, just because there was one more of them, and it's fairly significant in Kelsey. So quarterback awash. They both have Sanders, but that team has Kelsey on it. So what does this have to balance that out or to be better than that? And I don't see it. He has a lot of guys who probably had their career year last year. Is Tannehill going to repeat? Is Marlon Mack going to repeat? Is Lindsey going to repeat? Is Tyler Lockett going to repeat? Is Devontae Parker going to repeat? These guys did probably the best they're ever going to do. And what is their going forward?
Yeah. It's certainly dart throws at this point with some of them, and after 2020, I think you bring up a good point that it's only downhill from here. Bill, we'll let you get the final thoughts here since you haven't got to talk about Dortmund. Where is he on your unofficial ranks?
Cool. So I have him at 10, and the more I hear you guys talking, the more I might may have bumped him down. I agree with a lot of what Mike said. I agree with a lot of what Fred said. Fuck Miles. I cannot believe he's still getting thoughts in there. It's crazy. But look at his team. Tannehill's a big question mark. I mean, I was a guy last year who was in a lot of trouble with the Dynasty League. Tannehill put up 35 points for those 3 games. Nuts. There is just there's a lot of question marks there in receivers, tight ends, running backs. Even that question. Thank you, Fred. I saw your message. It's very surprising to me looking at that roster now. Some of it seems like it's built for later. Lindsey, I'm big on Lindsey. I am. I love Lindsey. And I think it's a shame that Gordon's there. I think he'll leave next year, of course, and go off. Marlon Mack is going to have a great year, I think. So I love that. I think he's probably going to be the most explosive player that he has on the roster. Knowing Phil, he has a noodle arm now. Like what he did last year with not bashing what he's done in general, but just he'll get Eckler. And I'm not comparing the two, but I think the dump balls, the way he did, he runs the routes, out big time. But looking at it now, I think his was it 5th place last year?
Yeah, 6th place.
Crazy stuff. It really is. I mean, looking at the roster now, it seems more built for the future than it is for last year, even till now. But if Tannehill comes up big though, like he did in those couple of games last year, that could change everything. Super flex.
Okay. Well, we'll move on. We'll move on to the 8th place team, which is really the second to last in the tier here, in Leipzig, who we have ranked 8 on average as well. Kind of fitting. Fred has them at the highest among the rankers at 4. Justin, who's not on the podcast, has them at 11 at the lowest. Looking at how he did last season, he did finish 10th in the Bundesliga. However, he did finish in the semifinals in the domestic cup and did qualify for the Champions League, or got to the qualifying round where he was ultimately defeated. So hot start there for John, but then fell off towards the end there. And looking at his team for 2020, he's got a good QB core here: Cam Newton, Stafford, and Tua. I'm not going to try his last name. 3 starters most likely, but not anyone that you want to start in your QB1 spot necessarily. He's got Dalvin Cook, who's certainly the anchor on this team, followed by really Royce Freeman at the second running back. Not too much depth there. At receiver, he's got Galladay, OBJ, and Fuller. Another team that receivers seem to be the strength of the team. And he's got Jack Doyle and Njoku at tight end options. So I believe I said that Fred had him ranked 4th in a Champions League spot. So Fred, convince us on why we all underranked Leipzig here.
Okay, let me just put it to you this way. What if he sells one of his quarterbacks? He needs basically a starting quality running back or a starting quality receiver, from one of these quarterbacks, and he has got a roster that competes with everyone in this league. 2 solid quarterbacks right now, no bye week problems. Dalvin Cook is supposed to be a top 6, top 8 running back if his head's in the game, if he's not, doing a holdout, not holdout kind of thing. Beckham, I think, is being very underrated right now. He's likely to come back from injury at the level that he was playing at when he was in New York. Galladay is supposed to be and expected to be a wide receiver 1. Will Fuller is always a wide receiver 1 the 3 games that he's on the field. If that extrapolates to more of the season, he's got players here. He's got even Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson and Will Fuller to me are the same guy. You just hope that their injuries are on opposite weeks of each other so that you can put one of them in your lineup. This is a team that can make some noise. And he doesn't need a whole lot of luck to go his way, but he does need to make a trade because those 3 quarterbacks can't help him with the rest of his lineup the way another position player could.
Yeah, and I love the hypothetical Will Fuller 16-game season because I still haven't seen that. But Mike, I'll
Even
let
eighth,
you.
right?
Yeah, right. Mike, I'll let you talk next because me and you were tied with having him lowest among the podcasters at 9th. What about this team won't make him successful this year?
So, Fred, to your point, what if he moves a quarterback? Kind of counterpoint. What if Cook holds out? So, the way that the collective bargaining agreement got updated this offseason was you need to be at a certain number of games in camp. If you aren't, then you don't get a season towards next year. So, Minnesota's already said that they're not going to pay him. Cook's broken off conversation for now, and at some point, he's going to hit the threshold of I've been in camp long enough that I can now leave and still have the season count towards next year. If they're not going to pay him, if they're going to say, fine, we're going to roll with Madison next year, or we're going to think about it at the end of the season, maybe tag you a few times, like what if Cook holds out? Then you're in a pretty good situation at quarterback, very good set of receivers, and a under below average tight end. That's not a team that's going to compete.
Yep, I hear you, and that's the risk here. And I was being optimistic with my projection, and you're being pessimistic with yours. I think the real answer is somewhere in between. What do you think, Donnie?
A couple thoughts. You said, what if he traded a quarterback? I would say then he's left with either two quarterbacks that have been injured a lot, including like broken back last year, or a rookie that you don't know is going to start this year. And my biggest concern, I think, is running back. If Dalvin Cook, who has also been injured, gets injured or holds out, you're taking zeros guaranteed at the running back position here, which is going to hurt. The only other player that I like on this team quite a bit that hasn't been talked about yet is Traquan Smith. I think, like, low key, he could have a huge bounce back year. I really like his situation. They brought in no competition. I know he hasn't done much. 54 points last year when he could have done a lot more. If he ascends quite a bit and shows anything, I think he's got a chance to produce some points as a good number 2 down there. I mean, I know they have Sanders now, but Sanders is not Larry Fitzgerald. He's going to hit the wall and he's going to be useless before we know it. So I do like Traquan Smith quite a bit there on that wide receiver core if he does well. And I don't like the tight ends here either. I don't think the tight ends have been discussed too much, but I don't expect much out of Jack Doyle, and Njoku's buried now.
Yeah. And Traquan Swift actually got a shout out from Drew Brees today, I think. Didn't read into it in detail, but certainly seems like he is a sleeper for the upcoming season. Bill, we'll let you have the final thoughts yet again. What do you think on this team? What's the unofficial Bill ranking?
I'm with Fred. I have them at 4 too. I love this team. Yeah. While we're ranking the team, we can't assume that Cook is not getting the contract or he's getting hurt. Galladay, OBJ, I've been saying he's going back to the New York Giant form. But I think the biggest thing that has been talked about is the tight ends. Big Dick Doyle is with Phil now. Everyone's got to remember that Ebron's gone, and Phil loves tight ends. And Big Dick Doyle is going to be that guy. But I think his stock is going to rise big time there. Huge. And again, that team stays healthy with the quarterbacks. I'm jealous of the 3 quarterback. There's so much potential that letting just go off. Doyle is going to be again. The chat is getting messed up on my side. I see a lot of things that Bill. I see Billy and Dick.
You get the gist of it.
It doesn't look nice. But again, Fred, I agree with you. I really agree with you. I think the tight ends. I'm sorry, the quarterbacks who they have, they would be great. I'd love to talk to him about a trade. I mean, I'm in trouble until Dak gets benched. But again, Doyle's going to be huge. He has great hands. He's going to be a tight end. I think. I'm sorry, a touchdown monster. I feel like in the red zone. Cooks can be awesome. OBJ is going to be with a healthy Mayfield, head and shoulders. He could be like he was in New York with an aging Eli Manning, the best quarterback of all time. So with an aging Eli Manning, and that with a Galladay, I mean, there's no way this team is not fighting for not only a Champions League spot, winning the league.
All right, well, Bill, we're going to move on here to our next team, and unfortunately, my thing froze. And just to let you guys know that don't know Bill, he's kind of got his guys. Jack Doyle's one of the guys that he's talked about ever. You ask him who the best tight end of all time is, it's Jake Ballard. So he's got his people, and he sticks to them regardless of how well they do. But moving on to our next team, and I'm sorry because I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties. 7th place is going to be Borussia Mönchengladbach, who is our reigning Bundesliga champion. He underperformed in the domestic cup, losing in the quarterfinals, and he did get knocked out in the qualifying rounds of the Champions League. But he is the reigning champion, but us as rankers have him as the 7th best Bundesliga team for the upcoming season. Matt and I have him ranked the highest at 6th, while Fred has him ranked in last place. So let's take a look at his team right now. He's got Philip Rivers and Winston as his 2 QBs. Winston's the backup now in New Orleans. He's got the studs at running back. He's got Kamara and Barkley, who are 2 huge studs there at running back. Also have Henderson, spelt wrong, and Evans rounding out that crew. Looking at his receivers, they're also very good. DK Metcalf and Keenan Allen. And he's got Kaseki and Goddard at tight end. So certainly some young options that are looking to break out this year. The reason why I have him ranked 6 is the studs approach. He's going to have 6 or 7 starters each week that are going to be very good, if not great starts. And that's why he's going to be a middle table team, if not compete even more. And I certainly don't see why you could have him ranked 12th, especially with those players. Fred, please explain that to me.
Oh, you're making me go first, even though I'm the lowest this time. Thanks.
Well, I went first.
Okay.
I was 6th. So
I see. Right. Okay.
Like, I think he could be higher than 6th. I think it was just a few teams I liked a little bit more, but I could see him making the Champions League easy. I can't see him getting 12th.
Did I hear you say that you could name 6 or 7 of his starters every week that he's got locked in? Who are they?
So Kamara and Barkley, Metcalf and Allen, Rivers and Gasecki or Goddard. One of them will be a top 10 tight end during the year, no doubt.
I'm not convinced that either of these tight ends are going to be consistent enough, or that he's going to pick the right one every week. So he's got those 5 guys you said: the quarterback, 2 awesome running backs, Keenan Allen, who's probably looking at his lowest target total in his career, and DK Metcalf, who's going to replace, be who Keenan Allen used to be, or better than that. So he's got that, but then absolutely nothing else. So are we talking that he's starting 2 tight ends? That gives you 7, I think, maybe. And even then, who's his 8th weekly starter? I don't see anything here that can make him put up a competing roster every week, unless you're talking about Barkley and Kamara being the 1 and 2 running backs and absolutely running away with it, lapping the field.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of a team that I see your same approach, but I see the people with depth and they don't get successful because you have the studs that just score too much. But Donnie, you're kind of in the middle of the pack here. Which side are you leaning for?
I think I'm the next lowest on him besides Fred. And if I were to let only my head do the ranking, I would probably be in line with Fred. I let my heart in on this one just a little bit. Huge fan of what I think Dare Ogunbowale and Chase Edmonds are going to possibly do this year. Fun fact on Chase Edmonds: every time he's been the starting running back, he's been the number 1 running back in fantasy that week. It's only happened one time, but that is a status.
Data point of 1.
So there's a couple of guys there that I really like. I do think Dallas Goedert is is a super good tight end, but I mean, Ertz is there and they just paid him a bunch of money. So, the reality is he's probably going to get buried. And I've got a crush on Cahill Waring as well. So I think, like I said, if I let my head do the ranking, I'm probably more in line with exactly where Fred has this team. But there's so many like diamonds in the rough on this team that I really enjoy that brought this team up for me a little bit more. I think the biggest weakness is they have one starting quarterback, and that starting quarterback is Phillip Rivers on a new team. That's kind of scary.
And you can see how this team won the Bundesliga with Winston because he was putting up numbers last season. But unfortunately, he won't do that unless he gets a chance to start. Mike, I think you're a little more on the favorable side, and it's got to be the stud, right?
I mean, kind of what Fred was saying with our last team. What if he adds another quarterback, then this team is a Champions League team, in my opinion. Again, the 6 starters that were named: Rivers, Barkley, Kamara, Allen, Metcalf, and then one of the tight ends. Edmonds, again, is behind Drake, who's in a walking boot right now. Again, precautionary, but sure. Russell Gage looks like he's in a good situation to break out in Atlanta because there's kind of no one else, and they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. And then the multiple tight ends. Like, this team is deeper than I think people are giving it credit for. And, of course, I would be remiss to not mention the next Hall of Fame white receiver that Tom Brady makes into a god, Scott Miller. But again, this is the frustration I had in rating these teams. There's one position that is completely out of whack on both ends for pretty much all these teams. And for this team, I think it's a middle of the pack team, but their running backs are just so fucking good. But their quarterbacks are so incredibly bad. I just have to put them in the middle.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. And I think he makes a move, right? If we were looking at this roster, if we had to say one team's going to make a move before the starting season, this is one of the teams where I'm like, yeah, I move with them. But yeah, we'll move on to our 6th place team here, and it was another team that finished in the Champions League spot, and Union Berlin follows 6th in our rankings, average of 7.17 among the rankers. I had him ranked 4th, which was the highest, and Mike had him ranked 10th, which was the lowest. So looking at Union's team here, Union Berlin's team, he's got Derek Carr and Nick Foles at QB, so serviceable guys. Looking at the running backs, that's one of the best crews probably in UEFA. Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, and Le'Veon Bell. At receiver, I only wrote down Chris Godwin, so the depth pieces must not be too good if I only listed one receiver, but Godwin is fantastic. Looking at tight ends, Cook, Jarwin, and Herndon. Hopefully he can start someone that would be a top 12 out of those 3. I think that's what we'll be looking for. And I'll start with Union Berlin since I have them ranked 4. And with serviceable QBs and 3 studs at running back and a stud receiver, he's going to put up tremendous amount of points this year. He's certainly, as I'm in the Bundesliga as well, one of the teams that scares me. And I look at this roster, I'm like, it's going to put up 100 points each week no matter what. Yeah, Carr and Foles are 10 to 15-point quarterbacks in most weeks unless they have a great week. But still, you add that to the running backs and Chris Godwin, and you have massive points. So that's why I have him ranked as high as 4. Mike, I'll give you the first ascending opinion here. Why do you have him ranked 10th?
Because the only reason I have him ranked higher is because it's running backs. His tight ends are not. I mean, they're all like that dart put in the 15th round of your draft. Like those are who these tight ends are, and it's the same with quarterback. These are the late round guys that you're taking dart throws on. Basically, like you said, it's the running backs and Godwin. That's it, as far as I'm concerned. The other 2 guys may not be starters on their team by the end of the season, and one I don't know if he even is right now. So to have this team ranked, in the Champions League range, I think is irresponsible. It's banking on a lot of things breaking correctly. And again, somebody said it a couple of times. he's got to pick the right tight end on a week-to-week basis. It's going to look easy because one of these guys is going to be the guy who puts up 60 points and 60 yards and a touchdown in a week, and everyone's going to go, oh, yeah, that's obviously the guy you start. And then the other three are going to be, 2 or 3 point duds.
Yeah, sure. Does anyone else have any opinions on Union Berlin here and where he's ranked 7th among us, or 6th, excuse me?
Yeah, I just have a comment about the people who had him ranked highly or maybe higher than me. His quarterbacks are Derek Carr and Nick Foles. One of them will start this season as the team's quarterback, and the other one probably will end the season as the team's starting quarterback. But there's a massive gray area in the middle where you could be getting zeros from both of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I see them as the starters. I see them as the better quarterbacks on their team. So I guess my bias shows. But you're right. Especially Foles is even more risky. But I believe in Carr, so that's why I have him ranked as high as 4.
I have my phone in the other room, so I can't see my rankings. But looking at this, Foles will be a starter week 3, in my opinion, if he doesn't start the season. Carr is tricky. They gave Mariota a big contract. Not to just sit there. Who doesn't trust him? But that running back core right there that's lights out. That's lights out. That was green there. If the Cook is tough, but if Carr and Foles, if they do and out, I know Fred. Maybe it was you, Fred. I'm sorry, I heard a little bit on and off. You said Champions League team is irresponsible. That was you. I just want to make sure because I came in a little late. If Carr and Foles work out with that running back core, that could take over the wide receiver core. You can start as many as you want. That could easily walk into the top 3.
Yeah, that was why I kind of had him as a middling team. I said he's not as bad as some of these teams that can't field a starting roster, but he's not as good as these teams that have the solid studs or solid players at a couple of different positions.
Which I understand. But I think if Carr and Foles, let's just play devil's advocate, and they start the whole time. Even with average points, that team with running backs and Godwin could kill it and walk through it.
Yeah, that changes everything if they're both starters.
The team is dependent on how the quarterback scheme goes.
And when we're ranking these teams, and you guys have all alluded to it tonight, all these teams, they have a great starting spot at one of the positions, and they have a gaping hole at one of the other. And we're just sitting here arguing over, the second doesn't work, or the receiver depth doesn't work, and we're going back and forth. But where's the team that puts it all together? Dortmund's got a bunch of depth but no starters. What is going on? Someone put it together.
I can tell you where it puts it all together, but you don't want me to yet.
We will get there.
Well,
Donnie, we'll give you the final thoughts here on Union Berlin. Anything to add that we haven't touched?
I would just say that I think Mike is too low on the tight ends. That's really the only thing I've heard that I had a strong disagreement with. There's 3, maybe 4 starters at tight end on their respective teams there. At least 2 of them are probably going to work out. I'm probably the highest on Jarwin for the long term. Cook is probably going to be good for at least this year. Eifert, if he stays healthy, could be good in Jacksonville. And Herndon is kind of right in that line of possibly being good in New York. So I think there's obviously some question marks there, but I think between Jarwin and Cook alone, that's a pretty solid group.
Right, and just to kind of clarify what I said, Donnie, it wasn't that these aren't good tight ends. I'm saying these are kind of in that 10 to 12 range at tight end, like guys that you're taking shots on in the back of the draft. But if it's best ball, agree. Love this tight end core. But picking the guy who's going to be 60 yards and a touchdown on a week-to-week basis is going to be a lot harder, I think, than people are saying.
Fair enough. I just think one of these guys is going to be a proven starter by a couple weeks in, and someone else may even be arguing for that like 7th spot to even start. I actually like a couple of these guys, but I hear you there.
Yeah. So we'll conclude that and move on to our 5th place team. We start getting into the Champions League spots, and that would be Hanover. Justin's team, who kindly ranked the teams as well. And so 5.17 average. The highest ranker amongst us is Mike, that had him as the runner-up for the title, and Fred has him at the lowest with 8. I'm looking at him at last season. Hanover was one of the tankers. He finished 11th in the Bundesliga. No success in the tournament. To go over his team for the upcoming season, we have the QB group of Breeze, Carr, and Tyrod. So 3 starters. Certainly should put up points, especially early in the season, with 2 starters right there behind Breeze. Looking at his running backs, he's got Todd Gurley, Kareem Hunt, Jonathan Taylor. Guys, I'm just going to remove his name. He probably won't be playing this season. But 3 guys that certainly have top 10 potential. Gurley's shown it. It's just really with his health. But, yep, some options there. Looking at his receivers, he's got Amari Cooper, Will Fuller, Sammy Watkins, and Randall Cobb. And at tight end, he's got options with Fant and Olsen. So, Mike, you have him ranked 2. Why is Justin's team, Hanover, going to be so successful this season?
So again, we just spent a lot of time talking about a team with a ridiculous running back core. We got Todd Gurley, Jonathan Taylor, Kareem Hunt, Cam Akers, Damian Harris, AJ Dillon. Like, he's got coming out the wazoo. We've got Amari Cooper, who now is, the 3rd receiver, I guess, on Dallas. He's still the one on a team that looks like it's going to be one of the more high-powered offenses. Noah Fant is, again, primed for a leap in his 2nd year. I think Matt Berry's all offseason, how he's the next Iowa tight end who's going to make the big jump. And he's solid at the quarterback position. It's one of those teams, again, where it's a roller coaster to rank them because you're high in some areas and low in the others. Well, the 2 areas I'm low here are middle of the pack teams. I think he's a middle of the pack quarterback, middle of the pack wide receiver group, and one of the top end at running back at tight end. So just based off of the division as it is, if you've got stability and high end upside, that puts you in the running for the title.
I think you might be ranking his running backs higher than they deserve to be because you probably own all of the same rookies running backs that he does. I know you love Taylor, but Gurley, Taylor, Akers, Hunt is looking like a whole bunch of guys who are at the bottom end of the RB1 or RB2 tier. So
and Damian Harris. So
and if everything goes well, he'll be in the running back 2 tier, their group. So these are guys that I don't think hold a candle to the running backs on the previous team, but he's got more of them, let's just say, and as long as all the rookies do what people want them to do. His quarterbacks are probably on par with the best in the league because he's got 3 of them. He's got the New Orleans quarterback in Breeze. He's got the Raiders quarterbacks in both of them. And he's got Tyrod Taylor, who I can't imagine them switching to Herbert unless the season is just going absolutely terrible for them. So he's got, starting quarterbacks and a backup. He's got starting tight ends and backups. He's got a whole bunch of running backs that he can pick from, but will they do what he wants them to do? And that's the real key here. I like Cooper, but after that he has a lot of question marks at receiver as well.
Yeah, Donnie, if we have 2 really different opinions here on this team. I see you have them ranked closer to. Well, let's see, you're right in the middle. So, did you get one by either argument here, by Mike or Fred?
Well, I tend to agree with the logic on the running back core. from Fred's perspective. I think ranking them week 1 versus say week 16 or the start of next season, there's a very big difference there. Todd Gurley is a starter on his team, and then it's who knows for all the other ones. They're either a rookie or basically a rookie in Damian Harris, who didn't even see the field last year. Good word on him out of camp and everything like that. But it doesn't matter how good he's doing. The only thing that matters is what Bill Belichick thinks of him. And if Bill Belichick doesn't like him, he's not going to see the field anymore. So I see one running back I feel confident in starting week 1, and that's it. So I don't even know how we can compare this group to the previous group. The quarterbacks, though, much more solid. They're going to have a hard time deciding which quarterbacks they like the most to start, over the others from week to week.
The one thing that I do like, and I see what Mike is saying, is he has so many RB options where he only needs a few of them to really hit their stride. And like we see one being a top 10 and one, 2 more being top 20. But with all those young running backs, one's bound to hit, right? There's always a rookie running back that comes out of nowhere, but shows they're worth more than what we thought originally. And especially in a league like ours where the full 16 weeks matter, if he gets a Cam Akers that's hot in the second half, he gets it for half the season, which is huge. So when you have that RB depth, that's why I can see him making a late push, maybe a team that struggles early with the unknown roles, but then can figure out moving on. Billy, we'll let you give your unofficial ranking in a quick little saying because we're running a little long. So what do you think on Hanover? Billy, you're muted.
Okay, I do want to apologize. I'm looking at my list here. I'm trying to figure out where we are. So I see.
We're on Hanover. Do you have any quick thoughts, or we'll move on? We'll let you add to the next team.
You know what? Please, let's go on to the next team.
Okay.
Before we do,
I
just wanted. Sorry. I just wanted to say, at this point in the rankings, I do have to agree that this is the deepest roster that we've seen so far. So they may not have the peak players, but he's got a lot of them.
I would argue that, and again, I've missed a lot. I think last year when we did the EPL, we were a lot deeper than things this year. What bar Tottenham, who has been bottom of 2 lists, in my opinion.
Well, don't worry, Billy. We will get to the EPL in a couple weeks, but we will save that for the 2 podcasts from now.
Let me call back up.
Okay, so we're going to go to our 4th place team among the rankers, and that's Bayern Munich with an average of 4.17. Looking at the highest ranker, it's Dottie who has them as the title favorite, and looking at the lowest ranking, it is Fred at 7. So another big deviation there. Looking at how he did last season, he finished 4th in the Bundesliga. He made the semifinals in his domestic cup. He was eliminated in the group stage. You'll notice that everyone that qualified for the Champions League got eliminated early because this division underperformed the most out of the force by far. But if we take a quick look at his team for the upcoming season, he's got Watson, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Minshew at quarterback, so certainly one of the stronger QB cores, especially with that third option. At running back, he's got Gurley and Carson as his 2 main threats, also Duke Johnson as a flex bye-week filler. Going on the receiver core, Calvin Ridley, Adam Thielen, Jerry Jeudy, and Justin Jefferson. I'm pretty sure that's the Jefferson I have here. And at tight ends, we have Hunter Henry and one of the Smiths, who I didn't write down his first name. Donnie, let's start with you.
It's always Irv.
Donnie, let's start with you. Why is this team winning the Bundesliga this year?
Well, I like their starters and I like their insulation. So 3 quality starters at quarterback to choose from. I like his running backs. I think Todd Gurley is going to have a boom year. I think he's going to use the heck out of him in Atlanta. So I think he's got a good running back there. He has Carson, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but then behind Carson, he also has Hyde and Dallas. So I feel like he's got kind of like the Seattle backfield on lockdown there, which I like for sure. They run the ball a lot. I do like P. Ryan as well in the rookie. For the wide receivers, probably the group I feel the least great about. Probably my favorite rookie receivers are on this team, and I also like Miles Boykin's chance at having a breakout second year. But there's obviously some question marks there because it is Thielen and a bunch of young guys. I'm not as on the Ridley hype as some others, but I understand he's got a good opportunity there. And then I really like both Henry and Irv as having huge years for the tight end group. So I just feel like there's quality starters and some great insulation to absorb an injury or two.
Yeah, and so yeah, I certainly see your point. I had him at fifth. I think the studs is what you're missing here, Donnie. Right? Besides Watson, I don't see anyone that's the consistent 20-point guy, especially with the concern on Gurley. I definitely have Carson Wentz higher, so looking at this team, I might go a little higher, but I still see him as the title runner. And I think I'm going to let Fred elaborate that point a little more, as he had him ranked 7th. So, Fred, what is Donnie missing?
Well, in fairness, I think I would probably have him at least 6th if I were to do this again right now. I get the arguments regarding his quarterbacks. He's got 2 starters and depth. He's got every week of the season covered. I guess I'm just a lot further down on players like Carson and almost his entire receiving core. It's to me, there's nobody there that is going to lead the pack, so to speak, for his team, for his roster. Is it Thielen? Does he go back to what he used to be? Can he go back to what he used to be? Is it possible for Ridley to become the next replacement for Julio? Yeah, but after that, everyone is really young and inexperienced. So, Judy, Jefferson, Hardman, Boykin, you can't count on any of those, I think, right now as a starting caliber player for this roster. And then after that, tight ends, people, you said you like Irv Smith. You could like Hunter Henry for some reason because he's never been able to be consistent. I guess if one of them breaks out, then he's good. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I think again, I had him ranked 4th, and it both feels too high and too low. I mean,
You could talk me into any team in any position right now, I think.
Because, again, to the point, this is a team that, one of the things you guys, I don't know if you can see, is the color coding that Eric has on his cheat sheet here. Blue's elite, green is starter, and then, yellow is where it starts to get a little bit iffy. He's got a bunch of green on this roster. I don't think he throws any blue, but it's nothing but green, except for Watson, who's probably blue. But, again, we're talking about, will Jefferson, Judy, or Hardman step up? This is 8th guy. So we're worried about, top 20 picks in the draft, stepping up and being the 8th starter on this team. So when we're talking that level of nitpicking, part of me thinks he belongs in that top 4. But then, again, the other point is none of these guys are like no shit, week in, week out studs, except for Watson. So, again, I know I'm just kind of repeating what everyone else is saying, but I think, some of his depth makes me feel a little bit better about this team to kind of break some ties. But this is, a tough team to beat.
Yeah, and so Donnie, how much of the depth did that factor into you picking him as the winner?
I think the depth at quarterback was one of the kind of the tipping points versus the other teams, and then just the fact that this owner has a wide receiver horseshoe shoved so far up his behind. I promise you, every single one of these wide receivers is going to hit, and it pisses me off, but they're going to hit.
Wow.
How did horseshoe get up there?
I'd love to hear that.
Do you think his roster can support both Jefferson and Thielen? Or do you think Minnesota can support both Jefferson and Thielen being great?
Did they support Diggs and Thielen being great.
I was going to say that. Thank you.
Fair.
Okay, well, Bill, why don't you get the final thoughts here on Bayern? Where did you have them ranked on the unofficial Bill rankings?
I'm at sixth, but a lot. This is a team I'm looking at that's going to kill it in the future. No, seriously, I'm like, this team is going to be stud at the end of the future.
So why do you have him ranked sixth if he's going to be stud?
Well, again, this is a Dynasty league, right?
Yes.
So this is for. I think the rankings that we'll be doing is for now.
You're right.
If we're ranking them for later, I'd probably have them number 1 or 2. I love Smith. I love Irv Smith. I'm a Thielen apologist. So besides him, the one thing I hated what you guys are saying is Chris Carson is a monster. I love him. Look at his stats last year. I mean, I had him on a couple of teams, and he killed it. He killed it. But go back to Gurley is tough. Duke Johnson is tough. I love Gurley, but arthritis in the knee at 24. Come on, what the hell's going on with that? But looking at his receivers, Judy, Jefferson, Deal. This is a team that's built for the future. And again, I'm sick. I think they'll finish right outside. Oh, I guess that's a Europa spot, right outside Champions League. This is a team that's for a while going to be a disaster in 2 years, 3 years. This might be the number 1 team in the Bundesliga. And that's before they make other moves. And I'm ignoring their depth. I have it right here. As the rest of their team, forget that. I think Duke's. I don't think he's ever.
Yeah, even if you have him lower, I'm sure Jeff would love to hear his Dynasty take.
Just did his whole Bud Light ad, so he's going to be a stud this year. So, joking, of course, but this team is built for the future. It is.
All right. Well,
it's going to be great in 2 years.
All right. So we'll move into our top 3 here, and the team that the rankers have ranked 3rd is Cologne. Cologne, I have them ranked as the highest, as the title winner, and Mike has them the lowest at number 6. Looking how he did last season, he finished 5th in the Bundesliga, so he'll have a qualifying spot. He did make the finals in the domestic cup, and like many of the other Bundesliga teams, he was knocked out in the group stage in the Champions League. If we take a quick look at his team here, he's got the Mahomes Breeze stack that everybody would love to have for this 2020 season. It is absolutely tremendous. At running back, he has Aaron Jones and a bunch of question marks behind him. His receivers are where he really shines. He has Devontae Adams, Cortland Sutton, Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark. So all of his flexes really coming from the receiver spot. And he's got Eric Ebron and Trey Burton to start at tight end, certainly one of his weaker spots. And this team is built like how I like to build a team, which is probably why I picked him as the favorite here. Mahomes and Breeze are going to earn you so many more points than anybody else starting any other quarterback combination for the most part. It's going to give them a huge edge. And when you take a look at those receivers putting up consistent points each week, and Aaron Jones being the only running back he needs to start, that's why I think I have him as the title winner. So clearly a team that's built to my liking in this kind of format. Mike, you have them mid-table. What am I missing here?
I don't mean to cut anybody off because I might need to get off real quick. I don't like Cortland Sutton. I was going to text a group chat that I had. Am I the only one who thinks he's not that good? Am I crazy? And I just sent it to both of my VPs in the area and 2 GMs. So I'm going to get off. I'm going to put this I'm going to mute it for a while and see how it goes. So I don't like Cortland Sutton. I think he's garbage, and I also might be fired. Not garbage.
All right. Well, good luck with it. Take care of your business life, Bill. If you're still around, we'll make sure to say goodbye to you. But,
I'll jump back and I'll get an answer. So.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we're gonna cut over to Mike here, who has Cologne ranked at number 6, unlike me, who has him ranked as the title winner. So, Mike, why do you have him ranked mid-table?
I mean, it's the same story as every other team in this league. He's elite in two positions and terrible at two positions. Terrible at tight end. I think if your title hopes are pinned on Eric Ebron, you may want to make some changes in your life. And yes, Aaron Jones is solid, but that number two, I think right now is what Anthony McFarland. So if Jones is really your only option, that's a lot of risk for a title winner. You can't argue with the quarterbacks, and those receivers are, Adams, Boyd, Shark, Slayton, Sutton, Beasley, like super deep. So I think he's got a ton of options there. It's just, I mean, it's the same old story with every other mid-league team. You're really good in two positions, you're terrible in one, and you're serviceable in another. That's mid-league to me.
Yeah, this team really comes down to whether or not Aaron Jones is a high-end RB1 again. And if he is, he's competing for a championship. And if he's not, he's lower half easily. He has no depth there, so all of his eggs are in that basket. If Aaron, his team goes as Aaron Jones goes.
Yeah, it's I feel like he's on a contract here. Aaron Jones is still good. I mean, maybe not as many touchdowns, but I like him as a pass catcher. I think he'll even do better. So I'm not even worried about Jones, regressing. Maybe a few spots, but nothing that would give me concern. Donnie, what do you think about Cologne's team here?
I like the running back core quite a bit. I do like the quarterback, decision there. It's pretty easy one to make. I couldn't agree more on the tight ends. I think there's going to be weeks where this team ends up with a 0 at tight end because they picked the wrong one, which is going to suck. And obviously the insulation of if Aaron Jones gets hurt, she has been hurt. He's possibly taking zeros at running back. I actually don't think this is necessarily a slam dunk better quarterback group than the last group that we looked at. Last year, Watson outscored Mahomes, and both of Bayern's next options in Garoppolo and Minshew outscored Breeze. So I don't think there's, it's not outside the realm of possibility that the other quarterback group isn't better. So I think the depth issues and are really, and then the outright gaping hole at tight end is what put this team below Bayern for me. I still like it a lot. There's a lot of upside here. I mean, the wide receiver core is fantastic. Huge fan of DJ Chark. I think he's the next coming AJ Green personally, and I like several others on there as well. But I think it really is the depth issues that really scare me. There's some really probable things that could really hold this team back.
Now, Donnie, I want to one thing. Now, you said Watson and the other quarterback, whether it be Carr or whoever it was, were outscoring Mahomes and Breeze. Is that total points or per game points? Because I know Mahomes and Breeze both missed time last season.
Just total points for last year.
Yeah, okay. So that would be my argument to you. I still prefer these quarterbacks a lot more. I'm sure they did more on average. They both had injuries, which I don't think they're known for having injuries for the most part, even though Breeze is getting older. So I would pick, if redraft, I'd take these two in a heartbeat over Watson and I forget the second one on Munich's team.
Either Garoppolo or Minshew. No, I hear you there. I'm just saying he's got a couple options there so I would say Mahomes and Watson are at least comparable. I know Mahomes is on another level, but they're at least comparable. I think I would probably take the combination of having both Minshew and Garoppolo over just having the whatever almost or just over 40-year-old Breeze.
All right. So, I mean, certainly one of the better teams here in the Bundesliga for Cologne. No one had them ranked lower than 6. So, certainly will be competitive as the season goes on. But we're going to bring you to our number 2 team, which is ranked at an average of 2.5. Fred has him as his champion, and Donnie has him ranked as 4th as the lowest. That is Werder Bremen, who was our runner-up last season. He won the domestic cup, and he also made it to the group stage in the Champions League. So Tyler had an awesome season in his debut in UEFA. He also talks a lot of shit in the group, me specifically to Luigi. I'm sure everyone has realized that, so he brings that to the table as well. We break down his team for the 2020 season, which I should have had up, but I don't. So give me one brief second. Here it is. I'm pretty sure he's a Jets fan, so he's got Sam Darnold and Jones at quarterback. So he's got the local boys at quarterback. He's from New Jersey. Looking at his running backs, he's got Zeke and Rojo and Moss. Also Madison, if Cook were to hold out. So some interesting running backs there. Looking at his receivers, he's got Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, Kenny Galladay, and Tyler Lockett. And at tight end, he has T.J. Hawkinson, Hayden Hurst, and Jack Doyle. So definitely a bunch of depth on this team, and a lot of good studs as well. So I can see why we ranked him so high. So let's start at you, Fred. Why is he winning the Bundesliga?
He wins the Bundesliga because Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones come into their own this year and prove that they're true middle of the road or better QB1s. That's what it takes for him. You know, these guys mature. These guys show improvement, and he has this. He's got great receivers. He's got depth at receiver in guys like Anthony Miller and John Ross, and even Lazard, who could end up being the number 2 in Green Bay. If anything happens with Dalvin Cook, he's got a plug-and-play RB1 in Alexander Madison to pair with Zeke. He's got depth. He's got studs. He's got age. He's got young. His tight ends, we didn't really talk about him, but I would not put Hawkinson in yellow in this. He's got guys. Hurst probably has a chance. Hurst. I'm betting on Hurst to have a better output than Hooper had last year. Let's put it that way. And Hooper was a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's why I haven't listed Green there. And I think Hawkinson is more just like, I don't want to start him right out of the gate. That's why I kind of, people don't know my color coding, basically like an iffy starter there. Like he could do well, especially a young guy coming into his second season for Hawkinson. But, I'd rather have to start the gates. I'd rather have a more consistent guy. But let's spin over to Donnie here, who disagrees with you a little bit. Still has him ranked as a Champions League team. So all the rankers really do like Tyler's team. But what doesn't put him over the edge, Donnie?
I think just the volatility of some of the guys that you're looking at behind Zeke and Jones. I mean, they're the only sure things on this team. Both those quarterbacks, like Fred said, could be awesome. And I really like a lot of Sam Darnold's game. I think he's a pretty rare gunslinger, honestly. And I like a lot about that. But at the same time, if that doesn't develop well and their offense and their coach is just atrocious, which does not help, it could be terrible. And they could have some really bad quarterback weeks. That's going to hurt them. Outside of Zeke, I don't really love any of the running backs. Recent Moss news kind of has me feeling a little bit better about Moss having a sizable role already this year. But beyond that, I'm not a big Rojo fan. Now, again, then if Cook holds out, then, they've got a great running back in Madison there. So there's some things that just have to break right for this team, which is why I have them pretty high at 4th. But there's also just a lot of question marks there as soon as you get past their 2 studs.
I mean, I don't like saying nice things about Tyler, so I'll keep it short. Things having to break right are going to make things tougher for him from a weekly decision basis. Right now, he rolls out the 2 quarterbacks, Zeke, those top 4 receivers, and pick a tight end. You got Big Dick Doyle, Big Dicks and tight ends who can go wrong there. It's straightforward.
Everybody likes
frankly.
that.
But Billy's a big fan of big dicks and tight ends. You get to 8 starters without really a sweat. Oh my God, it's like he heard me. But yeah, you get to 8 starters without sweating much, and then the upside really that's present in all 4 of those yellow running backs, and just makes it a stronger case. So he's the runner up for me. Sorry, third place for me, but clearly in the competition.
Bill, you got any quick thoughts on Bremen before we move on?
On Bremen? Yeah, they're my number 2. I'm not sure where we are.
All right, perfect. Great analysis there. And we'll move on to our number 1 team as rankings, and it is Eric of Wolfsburg. Matt, Mike, and Justin had him ranked as the winner, while Fred and Donnie had him ranked 3 as the lowest there. Looking at my season last year, I finished 8th. It really was a tanking season that went horribly wrong, as in I did better than I wanted to, and I made the quarterfinals in the domestic cup, so nothing doing in the outside cups. But looking at my roster, which is totally rebuilt for the 2020 season, I have Prescott and Rodgers, who are my 2 favorite NFL quarterbacks. So not only do I think they're good, but they're my favorites. Looking at running back, it is my weaker spot for sure. The David Montgomery news hurts. James White is really my only other starter there until Akers gets going. Looking at my receivers there, my bread and butter, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Amari Cooper, and A.J. Brown will be the main starters there. And Darren Waller will be the starting tight end. So just because it's my team, I'd just like to say that not only is this my favorite Dynasty league because I run this league and I think it's been a huge success, but I have players that I love rooting for. I have my Packers, Rodgers, Adams stack, which I am fucking thrilled about. I got Prescott, who's my boy. This is my team. Like, if this team goes well, my NFL season is literally perfect. So I have a lot into this team. But Mike, we'll start with you. As you have him, I have myself the runner-up. You have me as the winner. So what do you see that you love on my team?
I mean, I'm going to say it for the 15th time. Every other team in the Bundesliga has a glaring weakness at a position group, and you don't. So that just kind of answers everything for me. You've got elite production in 4 starters. I feel good about 2 running backs a week for you, and plus Montgomery, it turns out to be, I think it was a strained groin, wasn't actually, needed to be carted off the field, so that's over dramatized. And then between Waller and Rudolph, that's middle of the pack tight end play right there. So I think your worst position, your middle of the pack, and your best positions, your tops of the league. So that level of consistency wins the league.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And we're going to cut. And sorry, Billy, that you're going last, but you did join kind of late, so you weren't ahead of here for the game plan. But you wanted to get a word in before we hear Fred and Donnie tell me why my team isn't that good. So what do you have to say, Bill?
I did because I'm in trouble. Yada, 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 yada. I just got engaged, and now she's a monster. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. I love her. I'm happy I did it. I thought I would have 3 weeks to.
Is that what you just did when you left the screen?
Oh, well, I was getting yelled at by her. Yeah, that's what I was. But again, thank you. I'm very happy I did it, but it's unbelievable. Anyway, I hate giving Eric compliments. You guys haven't been around enough for to know that Eric and I are good friends. I hate telling him good news. It's the worst. I can't stand it. His team is just fantastic. I'm looking at his team. There's one hole in it, maybe, which I'll get to in a second. Montgomery, White, Michelle, right there. And PPR, it's not that big here. I get that. Look at his receivers. Adams, Jones, Cooper, A.J. Brown, Debo. It's absurd. He can start at one running back and 5 receivers. It's call it a day if you want to. Which is disgusting. He took advantage of last year. His team sucked last year. I love the way he did it. Walker is, again, whoever how old he is, it doesn't matter. The only hole that I have in his team, he traded me last year, Andy Dalton. So as soon as Prescott tears that ACL, I'm golden.
Don't you dare say that about Dak Prescott, you jerk.
I cannot believe that, dude. I was there was one guy, and I hope it's not one of you guys because I don't know who it was. I blocked him in the thing. They offered me Sean McCoy 2 first-round picks and 2 third-round picks for Eli Manning. The guy's basically dead. And Eric, again, Superflex, Eric, it was good. It was a fair trade. But just going back to this, Eric, I think it's a perfect team. It's a perfect team. You were so, and I thought originally I thought you were so stupid last year with what you did, trading away all your players. This and that. I'm like, wow, this guy's a retard. He's gonna be so stupid. He's doing this. He's doing that. We'll get it now. Look how young he is in the receiver, and the way that our league is set up. He can start 4 of those receivers. 2 quarterbacks, 1 tight end. There's no reason that I don't think Eric runs away with this division. He should. And runs away, I think, by 6 points would be my guess. And I hate giving him a compliment. I hate it. I hate when Eric wins. But bravo.
So leave what you said, Bill. My strategy where I accumulated first-round picks. The person who really taught me that was, I forget his real name, is House Aaron in our Game of Thrones league. He was the one that showed me it works, and it works. And this is a very key example of it works. But we'll move to Fred and Donnie because Fred and Donnie had me ranked 3rd, so they're not as optimistic as you and Mike are. I'd like to hear why they are.
Again, I wanted to get everything out because I have to.
Well, Bill, it was awesome having you on, bud. We'll talk to you later.
I love you guys. I'm happy to be here.
Donnie, why don't you go first here?
All right. I really like the wide receiver group. There's a ton of guys here that I know that I'm higher than consensus on. A.J. Brown, real deal, probably the best receiver out of that draft class and should have went above Metcalf. So, I mean, I adore him. I think someone mentioned earlier, I think Fred mentioned Gage, or it might have been Mike, sorry, that Gage could have a breakout chance. I like Harry coming back this year. I think Deontay Johnson maybe is getting a little bit overdrafted, but he came on strong at the back end of the year. The only guy that I think I'm lower than consensus on in this group is Anthony Miller. I don't see a ton of upside there, but if that's my biggest complaint, I think that's a pretty good group. Quarterback should be solid, but I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is nearly as elite in fantasy as he is elite as an NFL quarterback, and that matters. And I think now Dak Prescott is probably the second best quarterback on that team. So there's some question marks there for sure. I think the biggest thing that I see as far as a hole in this team is Montgomery, who already now has this groin injury that could linger into the first couple of weeks of the season. There's not a lot there. I think you may actually want Devonta Freeman to get signed more than Devonta Freeman does at this point, just to secure your season, because that would be a huge help. If Devonta Freeman was signed to a contending team where he looked to have a good chance at being the starter there, that's great. I was actually kind of worried for you when I was looking at these ranks, like, oh no, if David Montgomery goes down and they sign Devonta Freeman, that kind of sucks for you. Like, yeah, you've got the insurance there in Freeman, but that would really be terrible for you to kind of be sitting on Freeman and have him just take over for your only other starting running back. That would suck. And then I think I am a little bit lower on Waller too. I think they added a ton there to the wide receiver room, and the type of targets that Carr is going to love. And they also brought in Witten, which is the type of guy that Gruden loves. So after that, I think Rudolph is going to get replaced by Irv really early in the season. So there's just some holes there, which is why I had you at 3 instead of being the number 1 team.
Right. And Donnie, I have to elaborate on one thing you said. You said Prescott's the second quarterback on his team, on my team. I need to hear a little bit more about that.
I said he is the second best currently rostered Dallas quarterback.
And who's the best?
Zeke.
I was trolling you.
Okay, I have to say, because I'm about to start a whole new podcast about why Donnie's an idiot. But the one thing that you did allude to in a little bit in going into my depth receivers, because, A.J. Brown I have listed as my fourth, probably third, if we're being honest. And you got guys like Harry and Johnson. Is if Montgomery did go down and I don't like White as a starter, I can quickly pivot with those young receivers that I have that I'm not even starting in Johnson and Harry. So that's why I really like my roster a lot.
I do, but you still have to start one running back. And I think if you were to lose Montgomery, you don't have guaranteed points there. Damian Harris wins that job. There goes two of your running backs. Then you've got a rookie and a free agent.
That's true. Well, Fred, I don't know if you heard all of Donnie, but why else are you worried about mine as a title favorite piece?
It's not why else. It's the same reasons. I'm very down on your running back prospects and your tight end prospects. If you can get, that's a quarter of your starting lineup, right? Because you only need to start one at each position. Right. But I see this as a revolving door of you picking the wrong guy every single week, unless Cam Akers can take over that job and be what everyone wants him to be. That's your saving grace at running back with the way you've constructed this roster. I don't think I'm very high on Rudolph at all. We've mentioned Irv Smith a couple of times tonight because we think he's going to be the guy who gets those points in Minnesota. And I think Darren Waller put up by far the best season he's ever going to have in his career. He had the perfect storm of no competition for targets and being the only guy left on the field. And that's not going to be the case this year.
Right. Yep. And there's certainly that you guys have illuminated that well. Those are the concerns. I build these teams thinking that last, that RB spot and Waller at tight end really won't make a big difference when I'm beating teams in the other positions. But, I've been burned once in that way, and I'll be burned again that way. It's just my line of thinking. But I want to thank everyone. I know we ran a little late, so we'll do our closing statements right now. The power rankings will be posted up on the website for everyone to see. Please talk about the rankings. We'll be doing La Liga next, so anyone feel free to shoot us over your La Liga rankings, and we will put them into our power rankings. Donnie, we'll start with you since you always seem to go last. Any closing thoughts on the Bundesliga or anything in general?
No, this was a fun group to rank. I think there's a lot of. It's fantasy football, so a lot of stuff goes on how stuff breaks. But I think this was, as I looked at even some of the other groups, one of the biggest, what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that, as far as these rankings, I feel probably the least confident about us being even remotely right about, because of just all of the variables and all of the best case scenarios that we played out in order to just get them down on paper.
Right.
Yeah, we were wildly off when we did, was it EPL last year? And it just goes to show you how little really matters from August to the end of January.
And, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Mine are exactly right.
Well, Mike, let's say goodbye to you. Any closing thoughts other than your extremely accurate rankings?
I've blessed you with those. What else do you want from me?
No, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Mike. Always, and hopefully we continue to see you on the rest of the power rankings. Fred, do you have any closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, I got nothing. I'm just looking forward to looking at a division that might be hopefully more deep than the one we looked at tonight. It feels like this is fairly top heavy.
Yeah, so we will do La Liga next week, guys. Stay tuned for any Corona rules that we update me, Matt, as well as the Europa League introduction, which we keep pushing off. We need to do it soon. I got to pee, so I will talk to you guys later. Good night.